Hello there everyone, Inky Fingers here from Inky Fingers Architectural Art. Now today I'm going to be painting this scene taken from an old photograph. Now this photograph is at a junction of Steep Street and Trenchard Street in Bristol, England in 1866, and this area was demolished in 1871. Now the good thing I like about this type of scene is that it's black and white, and so we can practice our tonal value paintings, meaning using only one colour, and with that one colour you can dilute it to get virtually a very weak pale colour, or use it pretty much neat to get a very dark colour. Now of course we've got to figure out what colour to use. We need something that's strong enough, so you're going to get a nice pale tone all the way up to a nice dark tone. So anything like blacks, greys, Prussian blues, any indigo, anything like that, sepia, something with a strong tonal contrast. Now for this I'm going to do it in Payne's grey, and I've already done a little swatch of colour or tonal values from Payne's grey with lots of water, which of course makes it very pale, all the way through to pretty much neat, which is very dark. And what we can do, which is very nice when you've got something like this, is at least we can sort of just go around the picture and match up tonal values. So the pavement there, you can see, is very much like number one on box one. We're getting this tone around here is in between box 2 and 3. This tone here is, I would say it's nearer to 1, 2, 3, 4 box 5. Now this is much easier when you have closed your eyes. You screw your eyes up, so you are just sort of seeing more tonal values. It's much easier to determine what you're looking at. So I shall be using this as a little guide and to paint this scene on this piece of paper, as it's always good to practice tonal value sketches of tonal value paintings every now and again. Now before I start, just a little talk about the equipment used. Now the paper, as this is just going to be a simple tonal value exercise, the paper I'm using is this ultra cheap watercolour pad, which I did a video on a couple of weeks ago, and it's all drawn out. And the pen I used was the Pilot V5 High Tech Point 0.5mm nib pen I used last week, and it gives a very good impression on this paper. And of course the Payne's grey I'm using is White Nights. So that's the equipment, that's the photograph. So let's get started. So we can see here it is very light, and we'll see what this is like. We can see how light this is. It will lighten off a little bit more. Now this house there, it is a tad darker in the photograph, so I'll just put, when this is dry, I will just put a tiny little bit of extra tone on this, but I'm not going to do really much anymore for that. And for the road, we can see the tones. If you just look at our little chart again, the tonal values, I would say they don't go anything past box 3. So we need to make that, or this, a little bit darker, and I'll just put this in like so. Now, of course, I am half closing my eyes or screwing my eyes up when I'm looking at the photograph, and I'm half screwing my eyes up when I'm looking at the painting. So it's pretty much, there's some sort of lighter area there, but that I'm not going to bother with that. Now I may at the end put a little bit of splatter in this area just to give a little bit of extra texture. So now what I'm going to look at is the front of the house, or the front of this building, this little shop. Now we can see that this area is much lighter than the background area. If you look at our little guide, this area is between 1 and 2, box 1 and 2. Closer to box 1, I would say, but we do have some textural little dark areas that are between 2 and 3, or maybe it's even closer to box 3. But we can put these on later on. All I'm interested in really is to get a flat wash onto the building of a tone, and that tone is going to be closer to number 1 in box 1, close to box 2. So what we need, I just put some water in there, and we'll try putting this wash over the entire front of the building. And go over the window, because the window is going to be darker. Anything that is going to be darker, slightly darker, I can go over, because any of the tones will be obviously be darker. And that's that flat wash in. And then the next step is to look at, I think, this part of the building. Once again, we look at our little guide, half screw my eyes up, and try to figure out just about where this tone is on our little guide. Which half screw my eyes up. This is more between 3 and 4. But I suppose I could go more to near 4, because once 4 has dried, it will be a bit lighter. So I just need to put some more paint in this receptacle, a little bit of scrap paper. Let's have a look at that. Now that I would say is a bit more closer to box 5. So if it is, we need to put a little bit more water in, just to knock it down a bit. And that, I think, is pretty much box 4. So we'll try that. So once again, the roof is darker, but we can just go over it all. I won't go over I have just a slight there, but I won't go over the windows. We can keep those a bit lighter. It's pretty much the same tone even on the side of the walls. And we can have this house here, as this is more in the distance. I want to keep this house a little bit more subdued. As like I said, I'm more interested in this part here, and then this part of the house around here, we can see it's much lighter than this. Obviously it must be just decay. It's a little bit similar to this tone here, but I want to separate that tone from that tone. So I think I may just use this, I'll just put a little bit more in there of that, and just paint this in. Remember, we're just looking at tonal values here. Put a lot more water in this now. The pavement is quite light. Quite light. So we can't leave it just white paper. So if you put a very, very faint tone, and that is the first initial washes of this building. Now we can, when it's dry, we can go back and we can start putting another wash over, for example, that, where it is definitely, we can see darker, because this has, of course, dried lighter, and start building up the tonal values even more. Now for the rest of this video, it's going to be sped up, very minimal talking, because this is now just going to show myself putting all the extra tones on, building up the picture, building up the tonal values, putting some texture into the buildings by just putting little blobs of paint here and there, and using splatter later on. is the finished picture. All done with one colour. We seem to have a decent range of tonal values, going from the very sunlit areas here to some nice shadow areas and some deeper air tones here, even though it's not as deep as the shadows here. I didn't want to do the deep shadows here because it would just make it, I think, a little bit too dark. But we have some nice details with the pen. We've got some nice watery washes with the multiple washes with the paint. Putting paint on, pulling it around with a little bit of water just to add a little bit more texture. So we can see here and around here. We've got the dry brush. We have the splatter, which we can see a lot on the road. And we have extra little bits of pen work, just to some dots, dashes, little scribbles, just to give the impression that there's decay on these buildings. And it is all done extremely loosely. So tonal value pieces are quite fun to do because it is, of course, just one colour, just varying amounts of water. And it can give you a really nice look. So why don't you give it a go? And until next time, I'll see you then. So goodbye.